Welcome. This video is one in a series of videos I'm doing about forgiveness. This video is about the freedom we get from forgiveness. I'm going to share a brief inspirational passage from my website titled, "Forgiveness Sets Me Free." And then I'll break the passage down sentence by sentence, looking at how each of the 5 sentences can be applied to our daily lives and our relationships. I'm Dr. Lynette Wiest. You're watching Wisdom's Peaceful Harmony, and please subscribe to the channel and share the video. And so this is the passage. My heart's forgiveness holds no victims, no hostages, including myself. When I give up my pride, I give up judging myself. The judgment of others also disappears from my heart. My heart is free to fully love without being stifled by fears and limits. Forgiveness is divine trust of divine love. So the first sentence, my heart's forgiveness holds no victims, no hostages, including myself. So what does this mean? Well, forgiveness sets us free from the idea that we are dependent on a price being paid before we can be free from unpleasant mental and emotional attachments. To be held hostage is to be held until a price is paid. And when you refuse to forgive, you hold your own mind and emotions hostage, sometimes in a victim state, believing someone must pay a price or understand your point of view before you can be okay. But forgiveness sets you free from feeling like an emotional hostage or victim and free to care for yourself and the situation in empowering ways. Now, when you invest mental and emotional energy in believing someone owes you something before you can fully move forward, your mental energy is diverted away from living your best life, and your energy is dependent on the other person's understandings and decisions. Letting go of mental and emotional dependency, it lightens your emotional burden and it frees your mind to create your best self, free from the limits and the pain of being an emotional victim or hostage. Forgiveness frees you from stealing attention away from your love and your self-care so that you can create your best life. The next sentence is, when I give up my pride, I give up judging myself. So to fully appreciate this idea, recognize 2 things. First, recognize that our brains can't see the larger context and purposes that our actions or lack of actions operate within. Our false pride tells us that we are able to see the largest context of our lives, but beyond our current ability to comprehend, to know, and to perceive, there is an infinite context that each moment of our lives is operating within. Because of this, any measuring or judging we do is naive, because we operate in a context of breadth and depth that is beyond our brain's ability to understand. Now, secondly, recognize that shame, resentment, and blame, they create a never-ending quicksand of emotional debts that we're unable to pay. This is because shame, resentment, and blame, they come from our ignorant belief that we are able to understand the scope and the context of everything. And so we think we can measure how right or wrong an action or lack of action is, and then we think that we can decide on an appropriate self-punishment. Our actions, they may limit our experience of peace and joy, but in the greater context, when we forgive ourselves, then we place ourselves back into the role of helping to create a wonderful world. By forgiveness, you place yourself in the role where you belong. Forgiveness, it frees us from self-induced debts, self-punishment, and sacrificial mental and emotional impairments that keep us from living our full purposes. When our minds are not frozen in guilt, blame, and resentment, then our hearts are free to love. Forgiveness, it frees us of the arrogant idea that we're able to measure and judge ourselves accurately, and it frees us from the shame that results from judging ourselves. Forgiveness resurrects our hearts to focus beyond what our limited minds thought And this frees us to create and evolve self-respect and self-confidence, freeing us to love ourselves and to love our best lives for the world around us. We can love our lives when we're living our best life. We can surrender the idea of sacrifice, of beating oneself up for past, present, or imagined future errors. Forgiving ourselves frees our mind to see consequences and outcomes clearly. With this clarity, we're able to learn more about loving steps forward. Past choices and actions that ended in seeming disaster, they may have been necessary turning points to learn more about love's presence and strength. And while we don't want to continue in unhealthy ways, we can embrace the opportunity to create new ways of being from the ashes of the old. The more we forgive ourselves, the more available our minds and emotions are to more freely give and receive love and to embrace all the parts of ourselves. Now, the third sentence is, the judgment of others also disappears from my heart. It is impossible for us to define and judge how others should live their lives. When we try to do that, we waste mental and emotional energy and time, and we limit our own access to empathy and compassion. Forgiveness sets us free from wasting this energy, and forgiveness empowers us to accept the reality of who others are, even when it hurts. Now, when we accept reality, then we can make informed and clear decisions about how to navigate the complex social matrix in which we live our lives. We can create loving boundaries with others that enable us to let our love out into the world while not allowing what is toxic into our minds and into our hearts and into our emotions. We can send the love out and keep the toxic from coming in with loving boundaries that come from the clarity that comes from forgiveness. Forgiveness empowers us to have unconditional love for everyone, independent of our circumstances and independent of others' choices. When we choose to love based on who we are, not dependent on who someone else is, then we have freedom. Forgiveness frees us from making decisions that are based on unhealthy emotions. It clears and shifts our minds so that we can deeply recognize the love that we have within ourselves. This is why we can love everyone. Love is not a reaction to others. Love is an extension of oneself. To love some lives and not others is an unhealthy reaction. But the power of love's forgiveness is not reactive. Forgiveness is a power that is not dependent on another person. The fourth sentence is, my heart is free to love fully without being stifled by fears and limits. Now, with forgiveness, we are free from having to use emotional energy to maintain boundaries. We can let down our guard of emotional angst. We can have the freedom from emotional angst and still keep our boundaries. We can trust healthy boundaries and love freely. And in this way, forgiveness, it sets us free from emotional attachment to anything that's not of love. And it opens us to all of love. Love is the only thing that can withstand anything. Through love, we create our greatest purposes and connections. And forgiveness sets us free from being emotionally controlled by anything that is not of love. Refusing to forgive traps you in a false prison where it is difficult to access love. When we're in this mental prison, we make toxic predictions of the future and toxic interpretations of the past. Don't use the moment of now to contemplate a toxic future or a past experience. Use this moment to embrace the present truth of your love and your power. In the present moment, the territory of your heart is the most important part of your life. Flood your heart with love and let it carve the river for your life's path. Let your life's path be a river of love, and realize that where your path is void of love, you have no lasting power. And where there is love, the power of your river is unstoppable. Respond to all others' paths with the power of your unconditional love. Practice, and you will become automatic in this. Pour love into any area that is empty of love. Power pours love in. The opposite of power is to try to force your way, which means to compete against someone else's force against you. Flow, don't force. Power transcends force. The power of forgiveness transcends above, and it flows down into any area of life that is void of love. Don't let your life be dependent on being against anything. This angst brings reactivity and anxiety and confusion, and it stops the flow of your love. Do not depend on anything except love's power. Share your love and continue flowing with power. Now, the last sentence of this passage is this: forgiveness is divine trust of divine love. Forgiveness sets us free to trust that every bit of experience has a purpose beyond what the human brain can comprehend. Your only territory of existence is the path you create, and it is completely embedded in a field of many paths, a matrix field. In this field, there are spaces overflowing with love. There are spaces open for love's power to increase, and there are null or empty spaces that we humans don't understand. But we can know that our power increases as we fill all spaces with love. When we judge, we lose trust. When we forgive, we find open spaces within ourselves and our world to trust and to increase the power of our love. This is divine creation. We don't force a replacement of bad with good. We participate in the power of love's expansion and infinite evolution as it grows to fill all of life. Forgiveness sets you free. If you liked this video, please click on the like button, subscribe, and share the video to help it reach out to more people. Videos on this channel are about love's power, about nature, relationships, and communication skills. It is free to subscribe. Welcome, and thank you for your time.